or any kind of senior positions, understanding the objectives of that organization is very, very important. Whether it is a preschool or a multinational organization, if the objectives are not understood quite well, then leading that organization and delivering the desired results will be very, very difficult. So when we discuss about the preschool administration and management, especially the role of a preschool administrator, the objectives for the preschools become very, very important. So today we'll be understanding the objectives for preschools, what exactly the objectives are set from the government perspective, and as an administrator, how we can deliver those things without much difficulty and how we can manage them. That is the core of today's deliberation. Now, if we look to various guidelines of different authorities, and in Indian case, it is NCERT, that is National Council of Education Research and Training. They have defined as a part of National Education Policy 2020, they have defined the objectives for the preschool education very, very well. If you look to the document that they have released for all the early child development organization, especially preschools, in that document, they have clearly defined in the chapter 1 what are the objectives for the preschool education. So when the objectives are defined quite well by the authorities, then it becomes much easier for the organizations who are running such institutions. For them, it becomes a very, very easy task to do. But important thing is that understanding those objectives, interpreting those objectives, and making a clear path to achieve them becomes the major goal for such organizations to ensure that they align well with the national guidelines. Now, if we keep this in mind and understand what are the various objectives that the government authorities they have set out for preschool education system, that will give us a better understanding as well as various means and ways to achieve them. The very first objective of preschool education is that to provide child friendly environment where each child is valued and respected, feels safe and secure, and develops a positive self concept. So, those are the things we'll be discussing well one by one when we go forward. But there are 6 objectives. They are very well defined by the national authorities. So, we'll just go one by one. Later, we'll just understand little deeply how as an administrator how we can take them forward and implement in the schooling system. The second objective tells to ensure a sound foundation for good health, well-being, nutrition, healthy habits, and hygiene for the child. The third objective talks about to make children effective communicators and foster both receptive and expressive language. Then fourth objective talks about to help children become involved learners, think critically, be creative, collaborative, communicative, and connect with their immediate environment. Fifth objective talks about to enable a smooth transition of the children from a preschool education system to the primary and further education system, which is more structurally defined. And the sixth objective that tells about to collaborate with parents and community to enable each child flourish. So these are six objectives. Those are set out very nicely by the NEP through NCERT in Indian system. And if you look to other countries or international curriculum, similarly international authorities and organizations, they set out different objectives for early child development. But in a nutshell, when we look out a global perspective, then these five or six objectives remain valid across all around the globe. So if we adopt these six objectives, then most likely we'll be able to carry out the very mandatory skill development requirements of the child in the preschool education system. Then let's go one by one how the preschool administrator or the preschool management can ensure implementing all these objectives those are set out by the government authorities. The very first objective talks about to provide child friendly environment where child is valued, respected, feels safe, secure and develops a very positive mindset. Now, once this is set out, then it becomes the responsibility of the administrator of the school to ensure how such things is carried out. So we have set out a four-step role for the administrator or the management of the preschool, how they can achieve such objective in their preschool. Very first step is that make a system where the strengths of the child is identified. Now, each child carries some kind of strength. It's the matter of the way we look to a child. We have to make it absolutely a well structured system, and the teachers should look to the strengths of the children. Now, the administrator has to make a point that how each and every child will be screened by their strengths. And if that is there and the strengths are defined, automatically that gives a lot of confidence to the child. Now, second step is that make a provision in the school, and the diary of each children should have a mention of the likes and dislikes of the child. Now, when a child is valued, when a child is respected, when the likes of the child is given a lot of importance. If a child loves color red, and if the teacher mentions about that and deals with that red color with a child, then child automatically feels respected. And those things will be coming if those things are documented. And school diary is the best way to document the likes and dislikes of the child so that both parents, teachers, and other people connected to the child will understand what the child likes, what the child doesn't like. Then, third steps, what we can do is that ask the teachers to write at least one deed for a week of the child which can be appreciated. In most of the communities and most of the surroundings, we most often criticize a child without understanding the repercussion, and that is a predefined condition for the child to lose the confidence. Now, in the preschool, if we will make a habit that some of the deeds of the child will be appreciated, then the child will gain a lot of self respect and self confidence. And a particular deed, if the child is respected, it's more likely the child will try to continue and repeat such deeds again and again. Therefore, the preschool teachers must identify a specific activity that the child has done which needs to be appreciated. So, when it will be mentioned in the diary or communicated to the parents, then the child will be multiple times will be getting that understanding. Yes, I have done that because of which I have been appreciated. Then, as a fourth step, make a policy in the school, no tolerance for punishment, and adhere to them very strictly. Although most of the schools they do it, but it becomes the role of the administrator to ensure that it is being followed, it is being adhered to, and in any circumstances, either physical or oral, no punishment should be there in the school. If the administrators will follow these four-step policies, then more likely the very first objective will be fulfilled. Let's move to the second objective. Second objective talks about to ensure sound foundation for good health of the child, well-being of the child, nutritional requirements are taken care of, healthy habits and hygiene. These are very important things for a child to make a habitual way of leading a good life. Now, again, we have four steps to achieve this uh, particular objective that is set out by the authorities in the preschool education system. Then, what are those four steps? Number one is that pick up a curriculum where there is a book on good health and well being. We have been telling very systematically since government has made a system and government has mentioned that the child must be given an orientation on the good health and well-being, and this will be only possible if there is a book or there is something as a teaching and learning material about good health and well-being. So the administrators must ensure that a book on good health and well-being is in place for those preschools who are running such programs. Now, second step is that make nutrition as a part of the curriculum and let the teachers get training on that. Nutrition is becoming a very critical component in early child development. And in countries like India, we have more than 50% children in the age group of 2 to 6 years. They are malnourished. Either they are stunted or they are wasted, meaning either they do not maintain the right weight for their age or they do not maintain right height for their age. So these are the two basic parameters for the nutritional requirement of a child. Now, if 2 years to 6 years are the critical years for the child to maintain the nutritional status, then teachers must be trained on the WHO, that is World Health Organization parameters on nutritional requirement. So regular measurement of that, documenting on them, making parents aware about that, that will make a long way to ensure that all the children are fulfilling the nutritional requirement during that age. If nutritional requirement is not fulfilled, then it will have a very negative impact on their academic performance. When we are doing so much of things for the child to excel in education, but if one of the prerequisite for excellence in education is not taken into account, which is nutrition, then all of our initiatives will be futile. So this is very important. All the teachers must be knowing what the nutritional requirement of the child and how to do them in the school. It's very, very important for the administrator to do it. Third step, what you can do as an administrator is that have a system where the nutrition in terms of calorie intake is measured and documented. Again, sometimes why nutritional deficiency is happening, because when a child is consuming that calorie intake, it is not properly measured. Now, again, this is a capability issue of the preschools, and teachers being the main players in the preschool for the skill development of the child, they must be trained about the calorie intake calculation, food wise calorie intake. So, the teachers, when they track a child's development, they can also this calorie intake as one of the parameters which impacts child's overall growth. Then moving further, the fourth step for the second objective to fulfill is that observe at least one day in a week as hygiene day to make hygiene as a habit. Hygiene day can be commemorated in many ways. It could be, hand washing. It could be maintaining cleanliness around. A lot of things can be done. So that school can do that practice to make hygiene as a very, very disciplined approach for the child in the future. Then moving further, let's go to the third objective. And third objective talks about to make children effective communicator and foster both receptive and expressive language. Before we go to the four steps for the administrator, we must understand what is this receptive and expressive language. Receptive is all about when something is being told, the child understands them without any difficulty. So the interpretation skill or listening skill becomes very, very critical for any kind of communication. That is called as receptive language. And expressive language, when the child understands, receiving is very, very clear, then whatever will be expressed as a spoken language, they will be very, very effective. So these two concepts are very, very clear. If a child is not very good in receptive skill, the child cannot be good in the expressive skill. Therefore, we, the preschool stakeholders, must understand that. Let the child understand the receptive language first. Let the child develop the skill of listening first. Then only other communication skills will come. So once this is understood, let's go to the four steps what the preschool administrators they can do to make this objective absolutely good for their school and their children to achieve. Number one is that ensure a curriculum for your school which has an explicit component for listening skill. If listening skill is not part of the curriculum, this objective is very, very difficult to achieve. If that curriculum has listening as a part of the syllabus, part of the pedagogy, then it becomes very easy for the teacher, easy for the school to make sure that child understands this and child listens carefully. Second part or second step for the school administrator for this objective is that again make sure that your curriculum which is being used for your school has an explicit component of speaking. So when child listens, then after that the second component of communication skill is the speaking skill. Then third step is that ensure a curriculum for your school which has reading as an explicit component. Reading could be picture reading, reading could be vocabulary reading, reading could be a room reading, reading could be a face reading, reading can be anything. Reading is a skill. If reading is not part of the curriculum, we teachers in the preschool will never give importance how much a child can read. As a teacher, Most often we are limited to reading of a vocabulary either in the regional language or in English. But apart from that, if child is not being skilled in reading other things around, the mood and sentiment of person around, that's a clear skill of reading that has to be developed from beginning in the preschool so that child will be an effective communicator. Then the fourth step is that the curriculum must cover writing as an explicit component. And most of the schools they have this, so nothing to worry. But where we administrators can give a lot of importance is the listening, speaking, and reading as explicit curriculum component in the preschool. Then we'll move further. We'll go to our fourth objective. Fourth objective, which is defined by the authorities for the preschools, is that to help children become involved learners, thinking critically, be creative in their approach, be collaborative in their approach, be communicative in their approach, and connect with their immediate environment. So this is the fourth objective, and for the administrators, we have four-step role. Four steps the administrators must think so that they will achieve this. Number one, allow the child to do activities by self-paced and understanding. A child will become creative and will be thinking critically, provided if the teacher will be allowing the child to do a particular task or particular activity by themselves. If for the on the behalf of the child, if a teacher is doing that, child will never learn and child will never be creative. This is very, very important. I'm not talking to the teachers. I'm also appealing to the parents. Do not ever demanding towards the teacher that why my child is doing so bad. When a child is doing a bad activity, then you can expect your child will be having all the ingredient to become from bad to good. But if the child is doing good through a teacher, then it may not help the child to do a better job in future. That's very, very critical. And allowing the activities to be done by the child is the very, very first step for the uh, administrators to allow the child to grow. This is very, very important. Second step, the teachers can do through the help of the administrator is that teachers must be trained in the technique of dialogic reading. Dialogic reading is a collaborative way of shared book reading or anything, any communication that happens between a teacher and a student. So dialogic reading, we have done quite a lot of training programs. Then you may refer them to understand what is dialogic reading. Dialogic reading is that allow the child to share their thoughts while you narrate a story, while you make something communicate some communication with the child. That's very, very important. Now, third step is make a policy to take the children to the field work at least once in a month. If the child will be connecting to their immediate environment, it's very, very important child will be getting exposure to that environment. And therefore, the administrators will make all the arrangements so that the children of the school or a particular class will be taken out and they will be getting exposed to various aspects of environment around them. Then fourth step to make sure this particular objective is fulfilled is that introduced and practice activity based learning or what we call as ABL in the school. Sometimes we have experienced schools give lot of importance either on the writing based or a delivery based methodology for the school. But more than that, what will be making the kids more creative and think critically is that activity based learning. If a lot of activities are presented as a part of the learning system, then it, it is easy for the child to be more creative and collaborative also in their approach, because teachers will be providing some sort of techniques. Maybe one technique is the scaffolding helps child to be more collaborative and also creative. So to make sure this particular objective is being achieved, let's follow these four steps under this. Then going further, our fifth objective, which is defined in the NCERT policy, that says to enable a smooth transition of the children from the preschool to primary school, which is very, very obvious. We prepare the child in the preschool to make sure the further studies and the latter studies will be very, very easy and smooth. For that, we'll also go through four steps. Number one step is that ensure that the curriculum has a strong assessment in place. Most often, what happens, whatever we teach, all the things we are not evaluating to ensure the child is comfortable in understanding and learning all the skills. Even if all the guidelines of the authorities, they are continuously in the opinion that appropriate assessment must be in place in each and every curriculum, but one of the lacunae in most of the preschools are the assessment. Even if assessment is there, there may not be age appropriate assessment, there may not be assessment which takes care of the learning outcomes. So combining together, if a good assessment is there in any of the preschools, definitely that will always help for the child to easily transit from the preschool to primary school. The second step, what we can do, make a system to track the developmental milestones for the child in the preschool. Developmental milestones are well defined by various international organizations, including World Health Organization, CDC Atlanta, and many other national authorities also. Now, why those developmental milestones are important? Because developmental milestones imply that child will be doing good either in study or elsewhere. But most often we ignore those basic developmental milestones for which child feels lot of pressure while dealing with the syllabus and other curricular things in primary school and further education. So developmental milestone is a must that must be tracked for the children in the age group of 2 to 6 years, so that their transition will be much, much better. As a third step for this objective, make the syllabus in the school as a progressive syllabus. Progressive syllabus is very, very critical, and progressive syllabus is defined as something. For example, if we in the nursery we have certain things as a part of the syllabus, make sure those things are covered plus additional things are put in the next class, which is lower kindergarten class. Then again, whatever is covered in lower kindergarten, make sure additional things in those lines are covered in upper kindergarten. We cannot make the syllabus very abrupt, something here, something there, which is not progressive, which is not synchronizing. Then it will create a problem for the transition. If transition is not planned in the preschool, transition cannot be made from preschool to primary school. So as the preschool system, the administrators, they have a control on the preschool itself, and preschool has 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6 year children. And if they can establish a transition from 3 to 4 years to 4 to 5 years, and 4 to 5 years to 5 to 6 years, automatically the transition will happen to the primary class. So administrator has to ensure these things are taken into account. The step 4 is that collaborate with the primary and higher class schools well in advance. Sometimes in transition will be happening and the child will be going to a particular school and they have a particular syllabus being followed. If those things will be understood well in advance, the administrator can facilitate that such things are taken into account while designing the teaching plan and other things in the preschool. So these are the four easy steps that administrator has to ensure that it happens so the transition becomes very, very easy. Now the sixth and the final objective says that to collaborate with parents and community to enable each child flourish. So it goes without saying the responsibility of child's development is not limited to teachers in the preschools. Equal amount of responsibility should be taken up by the parents and by the community where the child is spending quite a lot of time. Community could be the relatives, the friends, the neighborhood, all the things that is very, very important. Now, here the role of the preschool administrator is four steps. So, if the administrators follow the four steps, then it will be very easy to achieve this particular objective. Now, first step is that ensure that your curriculum has a mandatory meeting with the parents every month. If parents are not communicated with the growth, then parents cannot be collaborated. Parents can only be collaborated if the teachers, through the administrators, can communicate what is the growth of the child and what can be done as the role of the parents, then only collaboration will take place. We at Educated Kids has got the system very, very strongly defined for which the collaboration works very, very nice. Second step, what the school administrators can do to achieve this particular objective is that make a system to hand over the formative assessment reports to the parents. If something is not documented, only orally it's communicated, it has got a limited impact on the parents to be collaborative. But something which is documented very, very systematically by the school, and while parents are communicated that documented things is being shared, then the impact of this will definitely be very, very high and strong. So make sure whatever the formative assessment is being done at the school, whether it's every month or every 2 months, so whatever is the policy that school has, those things will be communicated and handed over to the parents with a proper communication note. Then only parents will come to know that where my child is missing and what is my role to collaborate with the school to make sure my child is flourishing. Then only this particular objective can be achieved. Now, the third step is that ensure that the communication between teacher and parents are regular and clear. Most of the schools, although they have a communication platform, but it is very, very formal. When it comes to the child's growth and development, all the communication and discussion with the parents must be very, very formal and it should be happen in a very, very formal settings. Please make sure that it becomes as professional as possible when you have your communication platform set for the parents to discuss about the child's growth and development. And step four, what the administrators can do is that always invite other professionals and social workers to your school along with parents. That will give quite a lot of impact on the child's growth and development. When the child listens other than the parents and school teachers, they will be having a different orientation and different lookout for their own growth and development. So we have created this 6 into 4 steps. So 6 objectives, 4 steps in each objective. So it becomes 20-step method for the school administrators to ensure for the achievement of objectives that is set out as a part of national education policy through NCERT. And I'm sure the moment we follow this, we will be complying to the government requirements for development of children in the preschool years. So I hope it becomes very easy for the administrators and for the management of preschools in India particularly, and the same thing can also be applied elsewhere, global platforms also, which can give a very strong capability to the preschool administrator to make sure that their school grows, their children they get benefited, and parents and teachers are also become happy through the development of the children in the preschool. Thank you for your patient hearing, and we'll be connecting with you with another topic in our next session. Thank you so much.